That was better than the last 3 tries. Good morning. Breakfast with the Broker every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We have the incomparable Andy Thomson. He is the City of Boca Raton council member, and he's an attorney, a local attorney in here, does business litigation. Welcome. Thank you very much.
David.
I appreciate you coming in. It's nice to have such a presence in the City of Boca, and maybe be able to answer some of the questions I know people have asked.
Sure.
So let's go into first. We were talking off camera, and we were talking about how respectable it is when you believe in something and then you just do it. And I thought it was amazing with the city of cleanup. That you really just got out there, put it on social media that like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Sure.
And then people like, yeah, I'm in. It was almost like a kind of a movement.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Tell us, kind of how that came about.
I'd love to. It was last January 1st, and I, like many people, have resolutions every year. And last year it was to exercise more. And the truth is I hate running. Like I can play sports or basketball all day long, but I hate running for running's sake, right? But I thought, we gotta do more of that. It's not that easy to get, 10 people together to play basketball. So I just started to run more. And so I ran to my gym, I guess it was the 2nd of January. And as I'm running there, I'm looking on the street, and you wouldn't believe the amount of trash there was everywhere. And this is in Boca Raton, this is, on St. Andrews Boulevard between my house and my gym. And I'm seeing all this trash on my run, and I'm thinking, these are our streets, and this isn't right. So I get to the gym, I work out, and it hits me while I'm there, why don't we see if we can get some of this trash picked up on the way home? So I asked the front desk clerk at the gym, hey, could I have a plastic bag to pick some stuff up? And I get one, and I jog back, it's like a mile or whatever, and I jog and I pick up all the trash that I could get, but the bag got filled before I could pick up all the trash. There was a lot of trash left over. And I thought, gosh, we are better than this. And if we're gonna do something about it, right, it's gotta start with you. So the next morning, as I'm running to the gym again, I bring my own trash bag and I was able to, at that point to pick up a lot of the trash that was left over from the day before. And it was that point that I was like, my resolution is not just to jog more on our beautiful streets, and they are beautiful, but to jog more and to clean them up as best we can. And even after a few days, you'd be surprised how much trash makes its way back onto the roads. And so that was just even back in January, and then over time, I started doing it with my kids, and you would not believe how much my kids love doing it. On the weekends, we would go, and my daughters would ride their bikes. I have 4 kids, so I have a big group that go when we go out. I have 2 daughters who ride bikes. They're great on it, seriously. I have daughters who ride bikes, and I have a double stroller where I push my 3-year-old son and my, now 8-month-old daughter. And the kids are all over it. They're the ones out there jumping off their bikes, hopping and getting the trash, putting it in the bag. My son, who's in the stroller, has an eye for trash. You would not believe it. Trash! And here's the thing. They ask most mornings to go do it. They want to go do it. And to them, it's not unusual. It's not strange to pick up trash when you're running. They're used to it, and they enjoy it. And I think that, to me, is maybe, yes, of course, the streets are cleaner, and that is great. But having our, young people see that is like part of what being a citizen and a resident is all about, I think is really valuable.
That's that's amazing. Because whenever you get your kids involved, I always said, once I started to have kids, they never cried more than I've ever had. Right. I don't know. I cry at every movie, every story, every commercial comes on, I cry.
Yeah.
And it's really just. It's because you have so much emotion for your kids, and whether it's the pride that you have with your kids really getting into this and helping, or just the love, overall love for your kids.
Well, can I say this too? Part of it is a reminder too that how blessed we are. I have 4 healthy kids. Not everybody can say that. I have kids who can ride their own bikes. Not every kid can. I have kids who can see. Not every person can say that. And, I get emotional the same way, but when I see people who just, the circumstances are different, and it's just a constant reminder of how good we have it. Not just with our kids, but in this city too. Because there's so much good that is happening in Boca Raton. There are so many good things. We have it so good. And it's so easy to lose sight of it. It's such human nature, isn't it?
It's amazing because you look at other cities and just driving through, and the reason why Boca has always been a destination city, especially within the city limits, is that it's so clean, right? When you talk about so clean, the parks are amazing, the schools are A-rated, the city facilities are top notch. From the police to the fire, everything is really, really top notch. And then when you go out and you say, listen, well, the city, although it might be appearance is that it's really clean, no, there's still litter, there's still garbage and stuff. And what's amazing, and most of you know that I went to Dubai last week, and in Dubai, there's no litter. Well, probably because you cut your hand off, right. but there's literally, it's a newer city and stuff like that, but there's not a speck of anything on the streets, and that was one of the things, the aha moments, whatever you want to call it. And I think it really is great that you see everything, because as a kid, perception has changed. So as a kid, I grew up in Boca, so as a kid, literally, I would litter. You throw something out of your window and stuff, and then as you realize, you're like, wait a minute, someone has to pick that up.
That's right.
And if it's you that's throwing it, why are you the one who's throwing it? We have a saying in here, never say that it's not your job. Listen, I clean toilets, I clean whatever I need to do.
Somebody's going to have to do it, right?
Absolutely, it doesn't matter. It's got to come from. So,
right.
Very, very commendable. So I appreciate it. Let's get into some of the other hot button issues in City of Boca. Let's talk about the golf course. The Boca Tica / Municipal / swap / whatever. What's going on that? Anything that you can share with us?
Sure, I'm glad you asked, because it's really just coming to the forefront and at a crescendo right now. Going back a couple years, the city of Boca Raton was interested in potentially, well, let me step back. The city of Boca is selling its municipal course to the west, outside the city limits, just west on Glades Road. And around the same time, there was a movement to keep a golf course, a municipal golf course, within the city limits and to buy a separate one. And that ended up happening, not by the city. The city didn't buy the course at Boca Tica, what was the Ocean Breeze Golf Course, but the Beach and Park District, a separately elected independent body, did. And this is going back maybe 18 months or so. And so they purchased this golf course with the expectation that it would renovate it and make a nice new golf course there. They purchased the land for $24 million. Which was high because the appraised value of the land was far below that. And over time, they chose a designer, an architect, to build a course there. And they estimated the cost of this new course to be $28 million. So that's in addition to the $24 that was spent on the land, which is a lot of money. I think by any measure, it's a lot of money, so. Particularly for municipal golf, because typically municipal golf courses were supposed to be the ones that were for everybody, that everybody could afford.
Sure.
If people had money and they played a lot of golf, they were typically members at private clubs, and that's fine. But municipal golf, city-owned facilities were for everybody. It should be affordable for everybody.
And when you look around, the trend is not to build new golf courses, is to take them down.
That is the trend. Oh no, absolutely. I think the graph on that is it's a very rapid decline in a lot of these courses. And so when they settled on the $28 million figure, the Beach and Park District came to the city of Boca and the city council said, we'd like your help in building this course that we've designed. And this was back in, I suppose, February of this year. And I'd just been elected. And I said,
welcome to the job.
Well, right. Never did I realize I'd be spending as much time talking about golf as I have. But I immediately stood up and I said, I appreciate that we preserve this green space and that we have kept it and want to make it a park, a golf course. But $28 million is simply too much to spend on a municipal golf course. Not only because you're taking $28 million from me and you and non-golfers all throughout town who will never even use it, we have to be mindful of that, but also because golf courses typically have to charge green fees to try to recoup money like that, and the green fees that would have to be charged on a course like that would be way above what the average person could afford. And I thought that is just not what municipal golf is supposed to be about. So I said, they came to us and they asked for $20 million from the city to help them build this golf course. And I said, we want to help you and we want to have a golf course there. We want it to be first class, but I'm certain we can get a first-class golf course for less than $28 million. And so for months, I think, I was saying there's a better way. There are other ways that we can do this. There are other models that have been successful elsewhere where it's cost a fraction of that, of $28 million to get a good course.
Like, what was it, Winter Park, right?
Winter Park is a good option, yeah, or a good example, because what they did was they had kind of the same story, a defunct golf course that the city renovated up there, and they spent, now it's 9 holes, so it's not like the exact analogy as to what we're having here, and it's much less acreage, but they spent $1.2 million renovating and upgrading their golf course to make it playable, and it is very popular. And as a result, because it's so inexpensive to build, the green fees are very cheap. I played it; it was like $19 or something like that. It was very, very cheap, yeah. But a nice course.
Right.
And I said, look, I brought up the Winter Park example to demonstrate we don't have to create Winter Park South here. It doesn't have to be just like that. But don't tell me that you can't build a quality course for less than $20 million, because that was essentially what I was being told for months. And truly, David, I'm not an expert in golf course architecture, and I'm a pretty lousy golfer, in fact, so I'm not an expert in the field.
I'm with you on that.
So I said, well, rather than just me yelling in the darkness, yelling that we can do it better and cheaper, why don't we bring in some experts that can show us that? So what the city did was, me and my colleagues basically issued a design challenge to the golf course architects in America, saying, who of you can build a first-class golf course here for $8 million? Not 28, meaning
It's like using
20
like
less.
thumbtack.
What do you mean?
Thumbtack, you ever hear thumbtack.com?
Oh yeah. Like, give me some ideas here, right?
Let's bid on it.
That's essentially what happened without the bidding part.
Right.
We said the cap is $8 million. Let us know what you can do, and if you feel like you can build a quality course here for $8 million, 20 million less than what they were talking about at the Beach and Park District. And 16 golf course architects responded saying yes, absolutely, including some that have built some of the most well-regarded courses in America. And I was blown away, in fact, by the response that we got. In addition to that, we had an independent consultant come in and tell us that they reviewed the plan that the Beach and Park District had settled on, the $20 million plan. They said, given everything that we see here, the location, what you're trying to achieve, anything spent beyond $15 million would essentially be a waste. It would be unreasonable to spend more than that, because any dollar after that would just be throwing it over a ledge, basically. You would get no additional bang for your buck. So it was at that point that me and my colleagues, I think, were certain that we can have a first-class golf course for a fraction of what the Beach and Park District was talking about. So in essence, we told them, when they came to us and they asked for $20 million, we said no, because we want to have a golf course, we want to work with you, but we can't use a design like this. It doesn't fit.
Was it like a top architect? Is that why it was so expensive, or they just so they just really wanted to?
I'm actually not sure.
Make it a more difficult golf course, or make it
That's
a more...
a good question. And for months I've been asking something like that, and I've gotten varying answers. You
look at some of the most amazing public golf courses, or municipal golf courses. Like, most people think of municipal as affordable.
Yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
So, but that's not always the case. Like in New York, they have some ridiculous municipal courses that are, have tournaments and such. And, I don't know that where the location is for the municipal golf course, that it would be conducive for the traffic and parking.
That's true.
That would have a golf tournament. So really, if you're going to spend that kind of money, you really are looking at potentially having, some PGA events, or a PGA and a senior event, or something like that.
You'd think, but that wasn't actually. If you asked the architect that they had chosen, they said, "Oh no, we're not. This isn't a championship level course. We're not going to be able to have tournaments here, because they weren't going to have the clubhouse and facilities that you need to host a tournament like that. Like, take Broken Sound, where the senior tour tournament is played. Yeah, it has a magnificent clubhouse, which was built with private dollars. It wasn't city funds that were being used.
And they redid it another $30 million.
And they're in the process now, I guess. Yeah. So what we did was we basically said we had a reset and a kind of a gut check. We said, we want to work with you. We want to have a nice golf course here, but $20 million is simply too much, and we're not going to be able. We're not going to contribute $20 million towards this. And so the Beach and Park District originally said, okay, we're going to do it ourselves then, though they didn't have the money. And so what they're going to do is raise their taxes to get the money over time to build this, luxury $28 million course. And the city council felt so strongly about that we passed a resolution saying there's no need to raise taxes. We want to work with you. We will help you build the course. We will do it ourselves, in fact. But we do not need to spend $28 million, taxpayer dollars, on a golf course. And so, thankfully, I think cooler heads prevailed on that, because at their final budget hearing, the Beach and Park District voted not to raise their taxes. And a few of their members, their commissioners, said, perhaps these are my words, not theirs, but perhaps we bit off more than we could chew on this golf course thing. Perhaps the city would be better suited to be the ones to construct it, using a design and their money, And here's the good part of that is, if that happens, and I hope that it does, it frees up the Beach and Park District to do the kinds of things that it is doing now and has always been doing, like not only maintaining the first-class beaches and parks that we have, but also some of the capital improvements that they were slated to do going back many years. So the golf course venture is something that's new for them. They don't run golf courses; they've never built one before. But they do, for example, maintain Gumbo Limbo, which to me is like a jewel in the city.
Yeah,
and it's due to be renovated. And so what had happened was the Gumbo Limbo renovations were kind of put on the back burner, because all that anybody was talking about was golf in this golf course. But I think if to me the solution is, and I hope it works out this way, is that the Beach and Park District said, look, city, you guys do the course that you think you can do, which we will, and we'll do it for substantially less than $28 million. But then that frees them up to do the kinds of things that they're best at. And so I think that to me is the best.
So
solution.
perfect. So as you said, then it's going to be ready for next fall, right?
Well, the sooner, I'm glad you say that. The sooner that they do that they allow us to build the course there, we can get started immediately. We are ready. All we're waiting on, because it's not our land.
Right.
When the Beach and Park District bought the land, they asked us to help finance the purchase, and we essentially have a mortgage on the property. We issued a bond to pay for their purchase of the land, and they're paying that back over time. But the land is theirs. And so if I can't build a golf course on land that's not mine, right? So we have to wait for the land to get transferred, for them to authorize us to do it. And we are waiting. As soon as they can do that, we would get started. We'll have it. We'll have it ready much sooner. Because here's what was going to happen. If they had raised taxes, it would have taken them 4 or 5 years probably to get the money that they would need to build a course. And that's not good for anybody. Then the land sits fallow for all that time.
It's already sat,
It's sat long enough as it is, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the most successful, when they built the Osprey golf course at Palm Beach County parks, and way out west, I call it like East Naples, but it really is a beautiful course, and people play it. So we're looking forward to. I know as residents and such, you really want as many, I guess, recreational activities that you can have that attract other clients and other customers and such. So that's good news.
Right.
So let's talk about development. Seems to be a hot button topic. One of the things, and I was on the screening panel that the RAPV plus GFR brought you in and talked about potentially endorsing and all that stuff. And when we did that, you had a very interesting comment that I never even thought of. Because when you talked about development, you talked about that this was already in the plans, or already in the works for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And this was before the prior mayor, before the prior, we're going back, probably, like 30 years, or maybe even before, Welchel and such. So talk a little bit about that, because I think the biggest misconception of City of Boca residents, and the biggest negative feedback that we hear is, oh, you're overdeveloping, there's so much traffic now, we have the downtown Boca, and now what are we going to do?
No, it's a great question, and I explain a lot of that using this analogy. I have my oldest daughter is 7. I started using this analogy when she was 4, so bear with me. Pretend she's 4 for a moment. My daughter, who's 4, is at that perfect age, because she's not in her terrible 2s anymore, and so she's not like throwing tantrums and saying no to everything and yelling. But she's also not.
Mine's 7 years old. And she's
still
never gone. Terrible 7 every year. Terrible 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can't wait till 8.
Eight's gonna be the year.
If she makes it.
It's gonna be the year. So they're not in the terrible 2s, 3s, whatever at that age, right? But they're also not 18 and asking us for our car keys, or talking about going on dates and that kind of thing, right? And so there's something about it, and I think every parent probably feels this way, where you don't want, you wish you could bottle that age up and keep her that age forever, right? And so, but as a parent though, you can't realistically tell even if it's a 7-year-old or a 4-year-old or whatever, you can't tell them to go into their room and not grow up and not, get any bigger and not develop, right? It doesn't work. If you did that, you'd have serious problems with, as a parent, and your kids would have serious problems. Instead, you have to manage the development and the growth in a way where there are rules in place and that they're enforced, and so that they can grow up responsibly and sustainably. The same thing is true for a city. So the kinds of things that we've done over time in the city are structured and are based on a plan that was put in place in the 80s, so almost 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I don't know if you remember the old Boca Mall.
Sure.
Downtown was kind of blighted. It was not, it was kind of a black eye on the city, right?
Sure.
And so a plan was put in place way back then to help the downtown area in particular grow responsibly and to redevelop. And so what they did was they said we were going to allow redevelopment or progress up to this much. And over time, that plan has been put in place, and the buildings that are going up and then have gone up are all per the terms of that plan and are all following the rules of that plan. So you're right, a lot of the feedback that we get is the city's growing too much, and I get it. Nobody wants their kid to grow up too fast, and people moved here for a reason. They liked it when they moved here. They liked it what it was like then. They want to keep it that way, which is a perfectly understandable thing, especially as a parent. And the thing is what I have to part of being in this role is educating, is informing people. It's to remind them that there was a decision not just by the elected officials 30 years ago, but the voters. The voters approved that plan 30 years ago to redevelop downtown. And so remember we were redeveloping.
I really need to talk to my dad. Hold on.
Right, exactly.
You approved that.
This is on him. But we're getting up to the point where it's just about developed to the point that they thought it was okay back then.
The only negative feedback that I see, and obviously there's nothing you or I can do about it. I would have just hoped that many of the structures would have stayed with the consistency of what Addison Mizner has done, with potentially architecture. You could have the high rises. I'm fine with that, but they look out of place. It doesn't keep the charm of the city, the charm of the downtown. The Sanborn Square and the Miser and going into the amphitheater, like all that. Yes, the mid rises and such, but it keeps a little bit of charm. Whether it's the Boca Resort Hotel, which is also going through transformations, which hopefully they don't change the Pink Tower or something like that, which they've changed just about everything else. I just think that the charm of the city, I guess, some people, when you talk about progress, you look at it and you just say, oh, well, my generation was the best. My father's my generation is the best. And everyone says, oh, if it was only like that. So, when you're looking at it, I just wish the charm of the city. Because you look at the city of Delray, right? The city of Delray is kept really within the historic district, very, very close to what the charm of the city should be. And, I think that's an example, really, in the entire nation, that, that's what you really would hope a downtown would be. And I hope that they kind of, if there are any more big projects, that they try and stay with the consistency. But
I totally agree. And here's the thing, progress is painful a lot of times. And the key, though, is to do it with respect for the past. And remember the rules that we put in place to govern the growth of our kids or the growth of our city, where they were supposed to enforce the maintain and have respect for the architecture of Addison Mizner. I guess it's possible that some of those buildings didn't necessarily do that.
Like the promenade. it's like a block and a half wide, and it looks so out of, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, it looks like so out of place. Hopefully the Mandarin and Alina residences and such like that will look, significantly, have more architecture and such.
Okay, can I say something about the charm too? Because I'm right there with you. Like the quality of life that we have in Boca, I think really is exceptional. Oh, yeah. It doesn't take long for you to, when you drive outside the city, to realize you are not in Boca anymore. Right? And there's a lot of things that add up into that. It's like you mentioned yourself, so you got them right in the head. There are the exceptional schools, the beaches, the parks, the clean streets, the great business environment, but there's also the charm. The charm and the history that Boca has, the people that brought people here 50 years ago after the war ended, that kept people coming here in the 70s and 80s. My parents came here in the 60s after to go to school. The FAU had just opened in the mid 60s, and that's where they met, was in the late 60s at FAU. But that charm is so important, and we have to not only be respectful of it, but honor it. And we should do that by managing growth in a responsible way. And that involves things like architecture, involves things like size, it involves things like, I'll take, to take for example, Boca is known for having undeveloped strip of beachland, right? And so just recently, there haven't been many, quote, development votes that we've had since I got elected. It was about a year ago. But there have been 2 that relate to beach development. And we said no. 5 of us, all 5, unanimously said, this is not the kind of thing we need in our city. They were seeking a variance on it, so the standard was difficult to meet. And that's one of the things I think we honored in that vote. We honored the charm and the legacy of our city. Because long ago they made the decision, our forefathers did, to carve out parts of that, Spanish River Beach and Red Reef Park and all of that out there, to make sure it was undisturbed and pristine, and we want to keep it that way.
No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, when you drive just down A1A, you know when you're in Boca, when you're not.
Yeah, that's right.
And literally you're nestled in between Highland Beach, with the city of high rises, and Deerfield Beach, the city of mid rises or low rises. So when you're in Boca, when you're not, and I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I know. What are and forgive me, I don't even know what they're doing because I just kind of ignored it over the years because it's been going left, right, whatever. I call it the wildflower property. I heard that they were talking about the the Silver Palm Park, and then you had the wildflower property as well. Anything going on in there, or I thought it was supposed to be a park.
It is in the process of becoming a park. What we did, so a couple of years ago, it was 2016, the voters approved a referendum, I suppose, that said any land, city-owned land on the intercoastal needs to be used only for public purposes. And that was, it by its terms applied to more than just the wildflower, but it had to do with the wildflower. And since then, we've put together, the city through the help of a consultant that we have, has outlined a plan to create a park that connects not only the wildflower parcel, the north side and north of
Wildflower Park.
You're probably right. I mean, just talking about honoring the legacy, right? Exactly. Right? We're going to honor our history here. But it's going to connect underneath the bridge to Silver Palm. And it should be really nice. It's taking a little while to put together. I think the plan is more or less done. And so we're going to in the process pretty soon of getting the contractors in to bid and get the work started on. Because right now it's just a parking lot and it's not really being, it's not at its highest and best use.
No, agreed.
But we're working on it.
Oh, awesome. All right, so last 2 questions. So one, probably the hottest button topic that we've come across in the last few years is the Virgin / Brightline train coming to Boca. Obviously everyone's for it and there's no opposition, so, right?
Well, there is some. Well, I'm interested to hear what you have heard about that because.
So, the opposition is basically that. I think most of the opposition stems from the entire Brightline project. That they feel snowed. They feel that the Brightline project was supposed to be this high-speed train going, X amount of miles per hour, getting you very quickly to one stop to another stop. What's that?
It's the best thing.
No, and I know Rebecca lives in
I
West Palm.
I live across the street from Brightline in West Palm. Like I walk to Brightline, I go to Fort Lauderdale to my friends, Miami, never driving down there ever again.
So I think that's a thumbs up for Brightline.
No,
but if you add a stop in Boca or Delray, I feel like that kind of
that's true.
I'm the opposite. That
It's less
kills
high
it
speed,
because you go so fast. That just adds another stop. Just take the tri-rail.
That's true.
Well, I think, and you're absolutely right. I think it's just, what happens though is that, at least for my purposes, it's totally selfish purposes, which most of us, you have selfish purposes because of West Palm. You don't want to stop another 3 minutes or 5 minutes. But in Boca, I think you would bring, whether Boca or Delray, but it looks like it may be closer to Boca. That stop would be huge because then from Boca to Miami, I don't know that you'd get a whole lot from Boca to Fort Lauderdale, but you would get a lot of Boca to Miami.
I would.
Right
now, here's the thing. Right now,
I see why it would help for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right now, we just get all of the negatives of a train, which is the noise and the danger, without any of the upside. Right?
I'm facing the Brightline on Quadrille, and when my doors are shut, I don't even hear it.
Oh, really?
It was built last year, the building. Yeah. But I'm used to it.
Yeah.
I live by
it's obviously it affects the neighbors there, but
get those hurricanes.
One of the things we talked about is it affects the neighbors, but those people knew, when they live. I mean, it's not like we're building a new railroad track. The railroad track's already there,
and it was slated to have a station there at some point.
Right.
So that's no mystery. But at the same time, I tend to think that it's a plus overall, and I think the community views it as a plus because right now we are in no man's land and have no access to it. Basically, there's no reason for me to take it at the moment because I'm not going to drive to Fort Lauderdale to take it to Miami.
Same thing.
And I have to go to Miami all the time. I have to go to West Palm all the time, and I would be able to use this and avail myself of it. And a lot of people would. A lot of people told me that they would. However, yes, the neighbors nearby. They would stand to probably gain in the form of higher property values because that does tend to be what happens when these stations get built in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, and Miami. The nearby properties have gone up in value because they recognize that it's valuable to have access, walking distance to a train station. But at the same time, we do have to be mindful of the impact and mitigate the impacts on neighbors. You can't simply say everybody else is better off. It doesn't matter what happens to you. And so I've actually pressed the Brightline Virgin folks to say, look, I want you to work with the neighbors to make sure that you can get something that they're comfortable with, that they want. Because I think for the most part they want it, but they just don't want it to be run roughshod over, right, in the process. And I am a very big component of whatever kind of applicant it is, whether it's a developer for a project or for Brightline here, to work with the neighbors and have good outreach and be a good neighbor because you're going to have to be neighbors with these people. It's like if you move into a neighborhood and you don't care, you never talk to your neighbors, you never do anything with them, that doesn't make for a good relationship between in the community. If they're going to be neighbors there, and they want to be, act like it now and show us that you want to be a good neighbor that you're going to be and help mitigate the impacts to the folks that are nearby. And they've done a pretty good job of that. So I give them credit for that, and they should continue to do so.
I think most of the opposition, though, I think really comes to the way they marketed. They made promises that they just didn't deliver. They were talked about, high-speed train. A high-speed train to us maybe to or let's.
Well,
I've
been on
it
every time.
I've been on it, but it saves a few minutes.
But when you add stops, like they're talking about, yes, it will obviously cut down. However, they are talking about
60, 70 miles, 80 miles?
It's something like 60 or 70.
Yeah. When you're drinking all day and you get on that train, it is not.
But here's the thing. Great. So remember,
don't mind a direct right. Drinking all day.
The real high speed train is going to come when they open up the Orlando station because they'll have direct
that
shots.
I'm excited for.
Not only just from probably from West Palm to there, they may have one stop in between, like in the Treasure Coast somewhere, but they're going to have direct access from here to Orlando.
The one thing I can't think of is we all say, okay, we're going to use the Brightline, but the Tri-Rail goes to Miami. The Tri-Rail goes
I've used the Tri-Rail 3 times this summer.
So the Tri-Rail goes to Fort Lauderdale.
Sure.
Now, is it when you look at it, is it that Brightline just does a better job in marketing and it looks nicer and prettier and it's the new kid on the block? Or, what's the reason why people don't use Tri-Rail but they use Brightline? You know what I'm saying?
One's a commuter type train. And it hasn't, I've taken Tri-Rail many times in the past too. And sometimes it's a location issue. The location's
I think it's the location issue. Yeah. When I was in my urban planning classes at FAU, we talked about this a lot, connecting the 3 cities. And I was like, well, when you get off at the Tri-Rail, it's not like you can just walk anywhere.
Right.
When you get off Brightline in either of those stops, Fort Lauderdale is a little farther, but you could walk to Broward.
Right.
Tri-Rail, the stops, if I took the Tri-Rail from West Palm to Boca to come to work, I would have to get an Uber and then come here and then, that's how I think.
Yeah. Well, you would have to do it with Brightline anyway, wouldn't you?
For what?
If you took Brightline here,
it would be a farther Uber because the one comes out of Yamato. But no, I mean I get it.
Oh,
Listen,
okay.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
To me, like I think it's amazing. Like I would love to be able to go down to Miami from Boca and not have to worry about anything other than a fare.
Sure.
So I think we would use it. I think people would use it a lot more,
sure.
and would be exciting. And well, I guess we can't even call it Brightline now. It's Virgin Trains or whatever.
But I must say that my job is to spend taxpayer dollars wisely and make sure that decisions are made wisely. So we have to make sure that we manage the risks that people talk about, and we do our due diligence to make sure that the economic impact is what we think it is. And so that's the process we're going through now, is to make sure that we can make a decision like this responsibly.
Yeah, no, agreed. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And the last question always, what do we not know about Andy Thomson that we should know? Or
What do we not know?
Something that maybe you haven't shared with.
Well, a couple of things. One is when I shared with you this morning. I know I don't look like it. But believe it or not, everybody out there, I was not a lineman. I was not a linebacker, but I did play football, if you want to call it that. I was a punter at Georgia Tech back in the early 2000s, and so I got to play against FSU, Miami, and it was actually to the point where my teammates at the time knew that I was a Miami fan. I'm a lifelong Hurricane. And so they would say, look, Andy, if you mess up a snap, we're going to know why you did it. So don't bother. But it's the Hurricanes, so back then especially, they were really good. They didn't need my help. And when we first played them, they won by like 40 points.
That's awesome.
One other thing is that sorry, Mom, but I was 10 pounds, 6 ounces when I was born. I was a massive baby. And that takes a lot. So my birthday, I always thank my mom. It's not a celebration of me so much as it's a celebration of my mom, who had to endure giving birth to a 10-pound baby. Sorry, Mom. Sorry.
I had two other questions I forgot to ask you real quick.
Sure.
One, Meisner Amphitheater. Well, the whole Meisner project, but it looks like it's going through a transformation and stuff. Do we have any update on the Meisner Amphitheater?
Sure. The amphitheater is the request that's come in is a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago, there was a consortium of cultural arts organizations in town that wanted to build like a cultural arts facility, befitting Boca Raton. And originally they had looked at a parcel of land on Spanish River Boulevard and Broken Sound near the library, the library, Spanish River Library. And when they came in, we asked them, do us a favor and look around to make sure that that's the best location for something like this to take place. And they did some digging and they did some research, and they thought actually maybe there is a better spot for it, and that would be basically the grassy knoll to the east of the Meisner Park Amphitheater. Right now it's a parking lot,
right.
And we have I guess we do some of the festivals downtown. We do it there, and they said maybe that's an ideal place for this training / performance facility. And what we did recently, they came to us to the city and they said, okay, yes, we've identified this new spot next to the Meisner Park Amphitheater, which actually is consistent with the original intent of Meisner Park to be a cultural area. And so they said, would you be willing to have further discussions with us to talk about what a facility would look like there? And we said, yes, absolutely, let's keep the discussion going. So it's very preliminary stages now.
Right.
The amphitheater would stay. We wouldn't be removing the amphitheater, but there would be a facility next to it that would have a more fulsome complement of cultural.
Yeah, how do we get the word out on the amphitheater? Because I think it's just an amazing project and our amazing place to go with the family and such. And and Meisner Park really lends itself to walking around and shopping and through the retail and stuff, and listening to music and what have you. And the holiday festivals are always amazing when they bring the snow and trains and all kinds of crazy stuff, and it brings the community together.
Sure.
And that's what realtors try and do, is bring the communities together as well. And I think we need to get the word out on this amphitheater because I think the attendance is down, just like the attendance is somewhat down in FAU Stadium. So we have FAU Stadium, where there are concerts and hopefully a lot more concerts. How do we get the attendance and the word out because FAU Stadium is gorgeous. I mean, the amphitheater is a great center as well. How do you think we get the word out to get more people at these events?
That's a great question. The city has done a lot in the past few years to enhance its communications, and in particular to let people know about events at the amphitheater. But I gotta say, they have several concerts, like free concerts throughout the summer in the summer series concerts, and they were packed.
In the amphitheater.
Yeah, the amphitheater. Like, they are packed for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So there are some of the events that they are massive turnouts. Like, they were talking about thousands of people there.
Yeah, I think it wasn't Queen that played. It was someone played there.
They showed a Queen movie there. They have cover bands that come in. They have ticketed concerts of recently. Who am I thinking of?
Well, I think was it
John Mellencamp a couple years ago.
Salt
and Pepper was there. Yeah, so they have
yeah.
big names,
Yeah.
and when they do, like, it is packed, and it benefits everybody.
So maybe it's just who's the actual act that's there.
Sure. Well, and so it's the product, right? And that's, I hate to say, that may explain why the attendance at the FAU games are low, because over time, a couple years ago, remember when they were winning like crazy, it was more packed then.
Yeah.
But that's remember the football team at FAU is still kind of new. Football team in Miami's been
But
playing
are they
since the
doing,
60s.
are they doing concerts and stuff like
Well,
that?
they
as
are,
well?
yeah, sure.
So I think that, that's really the question is, they need to get their, the word out on that, because I think a lot of those concerts are not, don't seem to be well attended. But again, it might just be
It
might just be the product too.
Well, and part of it too is we have to face fact that this is Boca, and there are lots of things to do here.
Yeah.
If it's not the football game or the concert, like, you can go to the beach, or you can go play golf, or you can do any number of things, because we have so much to offer here. And it's tough to get people's attention on some of those things,
Andy, I really appreciate you coming on.
Right.
Listen, it's not often we get the update on the city of Boca direct from one of the sources, and we certainly appreciate it. And we went way over the 15-20 minutes interview, but we certainly appreciate you coming
My
in.
pleasure,
And, October 16th, who's invited to this?
Everybody is invited. Everybody. If you don't mind, let me plug real quick. On October 16th, I have my re-election campaign kickoff, which is going to be at Maggiano's 5:30 on October 16th. Everyone is welcome. Please come by, say hi. But if you do, just please don't leave until I have a chance to come and say hello and say thank you for being there.
And I'll be there as well, and we look forward to your re-election campaign, and hopefully it is successful. So every Tuesday, 9 a.m., Breakfast with the Broker. We have some exciting guests coming up this month, so we look forward to it. Thanks again, Andy.
Thank you, David.
All right, appreciate it.
Go here, man.
Hold on.